Hey, what's up everybody? I'm Jacob with LP Woodworking and Restoration, and I was thinking to myself not too long ago, I have way too many hats. So today I'm going to build a hat rack and show you how I do it. Let's go. All right, we're over at the handy dandy whiteboard. I wanted to get some measurements before I started any sort of work. So I measured the wall space that I could use along with my average hat width and length and got some measurements that we're going to be working with. We got 22 inches across, 15 inches down. The average hat is 6.5 inches wide and 11 inches long. So here are the measurements. Those are my hooks and measurements in between. So I got my rough measurements off camera using a straight edge. So this would be 22 inches wide and 15 inches long. I did leave it a little bit longer at the bottom for the 15 inches because what we're gonna have to do is joint these boards. All right, now we get to the fun part. We're going to be cutting all of these boards to width. I'm using a speed square and a circular saw. You could also use a jigsaw if you don't have a circular saw. I recommend you getting a circular saw. But yeah, just work with what you got and remember, safety first. Next step is to joint these boards. So obviously I'm using old fence posts to do this, and they are not square. You can see the gap. I can see you. So that's not what we want. I'm going to be doing this at the table saw. This is something that I learned from a bourbon moth YouTube video, and I wanted to try it out myself. So we're making sure the blade is 90 degrees. Perfect. And we're using a sacrificial fence. So the reason why we're using this sacrificial fence is we're going to be bringing it up to the very edge of the blade so that it cuts in a little bit. And then we will run all of these boards across to get one flat edge. Then after, with that flat edge, we will take this sacrificial fence off and square up the other side, cutting it down to its final length. This table saw is loud, like most table saws, so I'm going to be using hearing protection and make sure I got all of my PPE going, and let's get to it. All right, so now that we got the table saw out of the way, the next step is to look at your boards and arrange them in a way that would have limited gaps. Obviously, again, I'm working with these old fence posts. They have a little bit of curve going on, a little bit of warping. So just take the time and find an arrangement that looks good and fits, and that will fit with the glue up. I am on the ground again because I have a limited supply of clamps for this glue up since I'm just starting out. I'm sure I will get a ton more in the next coming months, years, what have you. But I have some pipe clamps underneath, way too large for what's needed for this glue up. I have couple of these boards that I took off camera and put some tape around because they are going to act on both sides to keep everything as straight as possible because of that curve that you have in all of these boards. So these are sacrificial boards. Put some handy dandy blue tape on it, and yeah, let's glue it up. So it's been a few hours. I'm gonna take all of the clamps off and see how we're looking. Now that we got everything out of the clamps, it is somewhat hardened and everything's looking good so far. We're obviously gonna clean up these edges, but let's focus on getting some excess glue beads out and then sanding it. So what I'm using for sanding paper is an 80, a 120, a 180, then a nice 220 to make everything smooth. You don't have to go through all of those. Suggested is 80, 120, and 220. You can skip the 180. And to get these glue beads out, you can either use a plane, such as this, or a chisel. I feel like I should give one more tip. Between every grit, you should wipe down the area, judge the smoothness. I've seen a lot of people mark up the whole area with pencil. You can do that if you want. I don't usually do that, especially with this more rustic looking piece that I'm looking to build. So I just judge it with my hand. No splinters going on here. We are on the home stretch. So obviously you can see that they're not lined up very well, but that is to design. What we're gonna do is cut off the edges and make them both line up with each other with all three of the boards. So I'm doing this on a table saw. You can obviously do this with a jigsaw and a straight edge, and I'll show you both. I'm gonna do this side with the table saw and then the other side with a jigsaw. As you can see, the table saw is a lot cleaner and probably worth the price of admission over the jigsaw. So the table saw was nice and smooth. Not a whole lot of blowout at all. The jigsaw, on the other hand, you can see it's very rough. You can get by with it. All you're gonna have to do is sand this side again. I'm also looking to kind of smooth over these edges a little bit with the sander as well. So that's coming up. All the sides are now smooth to the touch. And now we are ready for finish. For this one, I'm going to be using Danish oil. Just a wipe on, one coat, fairly simple job. And then I'll get the hooks in and we are almost at the finish line. Off camera, I took time to measure out where I want these hooks to be. And I took a straight edge, made sure that they were all aligned. So, let's get to drilling. Hey everybody, so hat rack is complete. It is behind me. It's looking good on that wall. And besides needing to get command strips the next morning, which is on me, this was complete in one day. So let me know what you think in the comments and hope to see you next time.